The abandonment. The crash had been sudden and brutal. The ship Endeavour, once a marvel of human engineering, was now nothing more than a shattered skeleton of metal and fire scattered across the barren alien landscape. Smoke billowed into the purple-tinged sky, and the air smelled of scorched electronics and fear. Survivors stumbled through the wreckage, dazed and desperate, searching for supplies and a way to survive. Lina tried to move, but pain shot up her leg, leaving her gasping. She was pinned under a heavy metal beam, her left leg twisted at an unnatural angle. She had been part of the scientific team, sent to study the uncharted planet. Now, it seemed the planet was about to study her, through its hungry predators. "Lina," someone called. It was Aaron, an engineer, his face smudged with ash. He knelt beside her, his sharp green eyes scanning her injury. "Your leg. It's bad." "I can't move," Lina whispered, her voice trembling. She glanced at the others, a small group huddled in the distance. "They'll help, right? They'll get me out." Aaron's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. Instead, he tried to lift the beam, but it wouldn't budge. His hand shook as he grabbed a piece of debris, using it as a lever. The beam shifted slightly, but Lina cried out in pain. He stopped immediately, his expression torn between frustration and guilt. "Hey!" Aaron shouted to the group. "I need help over here." The others hesitated. The leader of the group, a tall man named Carter, approached, his face hard. "Aaron, we don't have time for this. The atmosphere here is unstable, and predators are already moving in." He gestured to the horizon, where shadows flitted among the alien trees. "If we stay, we all die." "She's one of us," Aaron snapped. "We can't just leave her." "She's dead weight," Carter said bluntly. "Look around, Aaron. We don't have the tools to move her, and we don't have time. We need to find shelter before nightfall. If you want to stay, that's on you." Lina's heart sank as she watched the others exchange uneasy glances. No one spoke up for her. They were afraid. Of the planet, of the creatures, of their own survival. One by one, they turned away, following Carter. Aaron crouched beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "I'm not leaving you." "You'll die if you stay," Lina said, tears streaming down her face. "Go with them. Save yourself." "No," Aaron said firmly. "I don't leave people behind." The group disappeared into the distance, their figures swallowed by the alien wilderness. Aaron stayed, his presence a small beacon of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. He worked tirelessly, scavenging materials from the wreckage to create a makeshift shelter. The effort was clumsy, but it was better than nothing. As the alien sun began to set, the landscape took on an eerie glow. The planet's twin moons rose, casting long, shifting shadows. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, clicks, growls, and shrieks that sent chills down Lina's spine. Aaron sat beside her, his hands raw and blistered from his work. He offered her a piece of protein bar, the last of their rations. "We'll get through this," he said, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "You should have gone with them," Lina murmured, staring at the flickering fire he had managed to start. "Now we're both going to die." "Not tonight," Aaron said, his tone resolute. "Not as long as I'm here." The night deepened, and the alien noises grew louder, closer. Aaron clutched a piece of metal he had sharpened into a crude weapon, his eyes scanning the darkness. Lina lay still, her breathing shallow, her mind racing with guilt and fear. A rustling sound broke the silence. Aaron tensed, his grip tightening on his makeshift weapon. The sound came again, louder this time. Something was out there, watching them. "Aaron," Lina whispered, her voice barely audible. "I know," he replied, his eyes locked on the shadows beyond the firelight. The rustling turned into a low growl, and then a shape emerged. A creature with 6 legs, glowing yellow eyes, and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. It circled them, its movements predatory and calculating. Aaron stood his ground, positioning himself between Lena and the beast. The creature lunged, and Aaron swung his weapon with all his strength. The impact sent sparks flying, and the beast recoiled, snarling. Aaron shouted, a primal sound of defiance, and swung again. The creature hesitated, then backed away, disappearing into the shadows. Aaron collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily. "That won't be the last one," he said. "We need to find a way off this planet." Lena looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and despair. "Why are you doing this? You could have left." Aaron met her gaze. "Because it's the right thing to do. And if the roles were reversed, I know you'd do the same." For the first time since the crash, Lena allowed herself to hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this, together. The first night, the twin moons of the alien planet cast an eerie, pale light over the shattered landscape. The remnants of the ship Endeavor loomed in the distance, glowing faintly as the last embers of the crash flickered out. Lena lay inside the crude shelter Aaron had built, her injured leg propped up on a bundle of scavenged fabric. The pain was sharp and unrelenting, but it wasn't the pain keeping her awake. It was the noises. The alien night was alive with sounds, distant growls, insect-like clicking, and the occasional echo of something heavy moving through the underbrush. Lena gripped the edge of her blanket, her breaths shallow. Every noise felt closer than the last, like the darkness itself was inching toward them. Aaron crouched at the entrance of the shelter, his sharpened metal rod resting across his knees. His eyes scanned the darkness, never resting for long in one spot. He was exhausted. Lena could see it in the slump of his shoulders and the way his hands trembled slightly. But he refused to let his guard down. "You should rest," Lena said softly. Her voice was barely audible over the chorus of alien sounds. Aaron didn't look at her. "Can't. Something's out there." Lena hesitated. "You don't know that." Aaron finally turned his head, his expression grim. "I do. I've seen the shadows. Something's watching us." The weight of his words settled over them like a shroud. Lena swallowed hard, trying to push down the rising tide of fear. She wanted to believe that the fire and their makeshift shelter were enough to keep them safe, but deep down, she knew Aaron was right. This planet wasn't just dangerous, it was hostile. For hours, the two of them sat in tense silence. The fire crackled softly, its light barely reaching beyond the entrance of the shelter. Aaron shifted occasionally, adjusting his grip on his weapon or craning his neck to listen more intently. Lena tried to keep her mind occupied, but the pain and the fear made it impossible. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig outside felt like a countdown to their doom. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed through the night, followed by the unmistakable sound of something large moving through the brush. Aaron was on his feet in an instant, his weapon raised. Lena's heart pounded as she tried to sit up, but her injured leg made it impossible. "Stay down," Aaron whispered, his voice steady but tense. The sound grew louder, closer. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to hide its presence anymore. Aaron stepped out of the shelter, his silhouette framed by the flickering firelight. He scanned the darkness, his body rigid with tension. The creature appeared suddenly, emerging from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh. It was massive, with 6 legs that moved unnaturally fast, and a head that seemed too large for its body. Its eyes glowed an unnatural yellow, and its mouth was lined with rows of jagged teeth. It let out a low, guttural growl that made the ground beneath them vibrate. Aaron didn't hesitate. He swung his makeshift weapon in a wide arc, shouting to keep the creature at bay. The beast recoiled, its eyes narrowing, as if it was sizing him up. It lunged forward, and Aaron barely managed to dodge its snapping jaws. He struck again, the sound of metal hitting flesh echoing through the night. Inside the shelter, Lena's mind raced. She felt helpless, trapped by her injury, and unable to do anything but watch. She clenched her fists, frustration and fear warring within her. Aaron was fighting for both their lives, and all she could do was hope he didn't lose. The battle was brutal. The creature was fast, too fast for Aaron to land a decisive blow. Each time he struck, the beast seemed to grow angrier, its movements more erratic. The firelight flickered wildly as the struggle moved closer and closer to the shelter. Then, with a final, desperate swing, Aaron struck the creature's head. The sharpened rod pierced its hide, and the beast let out a deafening screech. It staggered backward, its movements unsteady. Aaron didn't wait for it to recover. He grabbed a burning log from the fire and hurled it at the creature. The flames caught on its fur, and the beast howled as it retreated into the darkness. Aaron stood there for a moment, panting and covered in sweat. His weapon was bent, and his hands were shaking, but he was alive. He turned back to the shelter, his face pale but determined. "It's gone," he said, his voice hoarse. "For now." Lena let out a shaky breath, relief washing over her, but the fear lingered. The encounter had proven what they both already knew. This planet wasn't just dangerous, it was a predator, and they were its prey. Aaron sat down heavily beside the fire, his gaze distant. Lena reached out, her hand brushing against his arm. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded, his eyes still scanning the darkness. "We can't stay here," he said. "Not for long. If that thing comes back, it won't be alone." Lena's stomach sank. She knew he was right. But the thought of moving, of facing the dangers beyond their fragile shelter, was almost too much to bear. For now, all they could do was wait and hope that the night didn't bring something worse. Signals of hope. Morning on the alien planet was no less unsettling than the night. The twin suns rose slowly over the jagged horizon, their orange light casting long shadows across the wreckage of the Endeavor. The warmth was deceptive. It gave no comfort, only reminded Lena and Aaron of the day's challenges. The memory of the creature from the night before was still fresh in their minds, and neither of them spoke as they prepared to face another uncertain day. Aaron worked tirelessly, scavenging what he could from the remains of the ship. His hands were blistered, his movements slower than the day before, but his focus never wavered. Lena watched him from her place in the shelter, frustration gnawing at her. She hated feeling useless, but her injured leg kept her anchored to the spot. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice breaking the tense silence. Aaron glanced at her, but didn't stop working. "I don't see anyone else volunteering," he replied, though his tone wasn't harsh. "We need to get that beacon working if we're going to have any chance of rescue." The beacon. It was their only real hope. If Aaron could repair it, there was a slim chance that someone, another ship, a passing patrol, might pick up their signal and come for them. But the technology was badly damaged in the crash, and the odds of fixing it were slim. Still, Aaron worked. He brought over a mess of wires and circuits to Lena, setting them down beside her. "I need you to sort these," he said. "Figure out what's still functional and what's junk." Lena hesitated, then nodded. She wasn't an engineer, but she knew enough about basic tech to help. As she worked, she tried not to think about how little time they had. The creature from the night before might return, and the sounds they'd heard in the distance suggested it wasn't the only threat lurking on the planet. As the day wore on, Lena's hands grew steady, her mind focused. Sorting through the wreckage gave her a sense of purpose, a small reprieve from the weight of their situation. Occasionally, she glanced up at Aaron, who was hunched over the beacon, muttering to himself as he pieced together the broken device. "Got it," Aaron finally said, his voice breaking through the silence. He held up a small jury-rigged device, a transmitter cobbled together from salvaged parts. It was rough, but it might work. Lena felt a flicker of hope. "Will it send a signal?" Aaron nodded. "It should, but we'll need to get it to higher ground for a better chance of someone picking it up." Higher ground. The thought sent a chill through Lena. The terrain around them was uneven, filled with jagged rocks and alien flora that looked anything but safe. And then there were the creatures. "We don't have a choice," Aaron said, as if reading her thoughts. "If we stay here, we're sitting ducks. We need to move. Lena opened her mouth to protest, but something caught her eye, a glimmer in the distance. It wasn't sunlight reflecting off metal, nor was it the movement of the strange plant life swaying in the wind. It was something deliberate, something intelligent. "Aaron," she said, her voice low. "Look." Aaron followed her gaze, his brow furrowing. The glimmer was faint, but it pulsed rhythmically, almost like a signal. Without hesitation, he grabbed his weapon and stepped closer to the edge of their shelter. "It's not natural," he said after a moment. "It's a pattern. Someone, or something, is sending a message." Lena's heart pounded. "Do you think it's from the others? Carter and the group?" "Maybe," Aaron said, though he didn't sound convinced. "But it's coming from the opposite direction they went." A heavy silence fell between them. Investigating the signal could lead to answers, maybe even allies, but it could just as easily be a trap, or something worse. "We have to check it out," Aaron said finally. "If it's a signal, it might mean help. And if it's not?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron didn't answer. He didn't need to. The journey was slow and treacherous. Aaron carried the transmitter strapped to his back, along with a few basic supplies he'd managed to scavenge. Lena was forced to rely on a makeshift crutch, hobbling over the uneven terrain. Every step was agony, but she pushed through, knowing they had no other option. The signal grew stronger as they moved closer, the pulsing light becoming more distinct. It led them to a narrow ravine, its walls lined with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to hum with energy. The air here was thick, charged with an electricity that made Lena's skin prickle. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice echoing softly in the ravine. Aaron ran his fingers over one of the symbols, his expression cautious. "I don't know. But this wasn't made by nature." They followed the symbols deeper into the ravine, the pulsing light guiding their way. Finally, they'd reached the source, a small, orb-like device embedded in the ground. It pulsed softly, emitting a low hum that resonated through the air. Aaron knelt beside it, his hands hovering over the device. This is advanced, way beyond anything we've ever seen." "Alien tech," Lena said, her voice filled with awe and fear. Before Aaron could respond, the orb emitted a sharp, high-pitched sound. The symbols on the walls flared brighter, and the hum grew louder. Aaron jumped back, grabbing his weapon. The ground beneath them trembled, and a new sound emerged from the depths of the ravine. A deep guttural growl. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Whatever they had found, it wasn't alone. "Alien encounter." The growl echoed through the ravine, deep and resonant, as if the planet itself had found its voice. Aaron's grip on his weapon tightened, his eyes darting around the narrow walls. The glowing symbols pulsed rhythmically, almost as though they were reacting to the sound, growing brighter with every pulse. "Lena," Aaron said in a low, urgent voice, "we need to move. Now." Lena tried to shift her weight onto her crutch, but her injured leg made her slow. The trembling in the ground grew stronger, the vibrations rippling up through her body. Something was coming, something large, and it was getting closer. Before Aaron could help her, the source of the growl revealed itself. From the shadows of the ravine emerged a creature unlike anything either of them had imagined. It stood on 4 muscular legs, its body covered in iridescent scales that shimmered in the light of the symbols. Its eyes glowed a piercing blue, intelligent and unblinking. But it was its head that caught Aaron's attention, a crown of bone-like protrusions that pulsed faintly, almost in sync with the symbols on the walls. The creature didn't attack immediately. Instead, it studied them, tilting its head as though trying to understand what it was seeing. "What is that?" Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Something we don't want to fight," Aaron replied, his voice tense. He took a step back, keeping himself between Lena and the creature. "Stay still. Don't make any sudden movements." The creature sniffed the air, then let out a low rumble. It lowered its head slightly. the crown of bone beginning to glow more brightly. The symbols on the walls responded, their light growing stronger. "It's connected to this place," Lena said, her voice filled with awe and fear. "Look at how the symbols react to it." Aaron didn't take his eyes off the creature. "I don't care what it's connected to. We need to get out of here." But before they could move, the creature stepped closer, its movements deliberate but not aggressive. It stopped a few feet from them, its glowing eyes fixed on Lena. The intensity of its gaze made her shiver. Then something unexpected happened. The creature made a sound, not a growl or a snarl, but something melodic, almost like a series of tones. The symbols on the walls pulsed in response, their light forming patterns that seemed too deliberate to be random. "It's communicating," Lena said, her fear momentarily eclipsed by curiosity. Aaron frowned. "Communicating with what?" "Maybe with us," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The creature stepped closer, and Lena's instincts screamed at her to move, to flee, but she couldn't. Instead, she held her ground, her eyes locked on the creature's. It lowered its head again, this time extending one of its front legs. The gesture was unmistakable. It wasn't threatening them. It was offering something. "Aaron," Lena said, her voice shaking, "I think it wants us to follow it." Aaron looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Follow it? Are you serious? That thing could tear us apart." "I don't think it will," Lena said, surprising even herself with the certainty in her voice. "Look at it. If it wanted to kill us, it would have already. I think it's showing us something." Aaron hesitated, his instincts screaming against the idea. But the creature didn't seem hostile. Its glowing eyes held an intelligence he couldn't ignore. Finally, he sighed. "If this gets us killed, I'm blaming you." Lena managed a faint smile. "Noted." The creature turned and began to walk deeper into the ravine, its movements graceful despite its size. Aaron helped Lena to her feet, supporting her as they followed. The glowing symbols lit their path, guiding them through the narrowing passage. As they walked, the air around them grew warmer, charged with an energy that made Lena's skin prickle. The hum of the symbols grew louder, blending with the melodic sounds the creature occasionally made. It felt as though the planet itself was alive, watching their every move. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a large open chamber. The walls were covered in even more intricate symbols, glowing and pulsing in patterns that seemed to defy logic. In the center of the chamber was a massive structure, a circular platform made of the same iridescent material as the creature's scales. It glowed faintly, its surface etched with intricate designs. The creature stepped onto the platform and turned to face them. It made another series of melodic tones, and the platform responded, its glow intensifying. The air around them vibrated, and Lena felt a strange pull, as though the platform was calling to her. "What is this place?" Aaron asked, his voice filled with a mix of awe and suspicion. "I think it's a gateway," Lena said, her eyes wide. "Or maybe some kind of control center. Look at the designs. It's like a map." Aaron frowned. "A map to what?" Before Lena could answer, the creature made another sound, this one sharper, more urgent. The symbols on the walls flared brighter, and the vibrations in the air grew stronger. It was as if the chamber itself was alive, responding to the creature's commands. "I think it wants us to use it," Lena said, her voice barely audible. Aaron shook his head. "Use it? We don't even know what it does. What if it's a weapon? Or worse?" "We don't have another option," Lena replied. "If this is a way off the planet, we have to try." Aaron hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to run. But the look in Lena's eyes, hope mingled with desperation, made him pause. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. But if this thing explodes, I'm blaming you for that too." Together, they stepped onto the platform. The moment they did, the symbols around the chamber flared brighter than ever, and the vibrations reached a crescendo. The creature let out a final melodic tone, and the platform began to glow beneath their feet. The air around them shimmered, and Lena felt a strange sensation, as though she were being pulled apart and put back together at the same time. Aaron gripped her hand tightly, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. And then, in a blinding flash of light, everything changed. Betrayal of the team. The light from the alien platform faded, leaving Lena and Aaron in an eerie, dimly lit space. The air was cooler here, heavy with an electric charge. The walls of this new place were smooth, reflective, and faintly glowing with patterns that looked like streams of data flowing endlessly in spirals and curves. Aaron tightened his grip on his makeshift weapon, his body tense. "Where are we?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron scanned their surroundings, his jaw clenched. "I don't know, but this doesn't feel like the same planet. Something's off." The creature that had guided them here stepped forward, its glowing blue eyes scanning the room. It emitted a soft series of tones, and the walls responded, their glowing patterns shifting and rearranging. Suddenly, part of the wall dissolved, revealing a corridor lined with faintly glowing glyphs. "I guess it wants us to keep going," Aaron said, his voice laced with suspicion. "But I'm not sure following it is the best idea anymore." "We don't have a better one," Lena said, leaning heavily on her crutch. Her injured leg throbbed, but adrenaline kept her moving. "Besides, it hasn't hurt us yet." Aaron shot her a wary glance but nodded. Together, they followed the creature down the corridor. The air grew cooler, and the hum of the alien technology grew louder, as if they were approaching the heart of something immense. As they rounded a corner, Lena stopped abruptly, her breath catching in her throat. "Aaron," she whispered, pointing ahead. At the end of the corridor stood Carter and the rest of their old team. Carter turned at the sound of their approach, his eyes widening in shock. "Lena." "Aaron?" His expression quickly shifted to one of practiced composure. "You survived." "Barely," Lena thought, gripping her crutch tighter. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You left us to die." Carter raised his hands in a placating gesture. "We didn't have a choice. The planet's conditions. Save it." Aaron interrupted, his voice cold. "You made your choice. Now answer the question. How are you here?" One of Carter's lieutenants, a wiry man named Pierce, stepped forward, his face hard. "We followed the signals," he said. "Same as you, I assume. This place is extraordinary. Advanced technology, far beyond anything Earth has seen. And you're here to steal it," Aaron said flatly. Carter didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled, a calculated expression that set Lena's nerves on edge. "We're here to secure it. Imagine what humanity could achieve with this kind of power. Medicine, energy, defense. We could change everything." "You mean profit," Aaron shot back. "This isn't about humanity. It's about control." Before Carter could respond, the creature stepped forward, emitting a series of sharp tones. The walls around them responded, glyphs glowing brighter as the air vibrated with a low hum. Carter and his team tensed, their hands drifting toward their weapons. "What is that thing?" Pierce asked, his voice filled with unease. "Our guide," Lena said. "And I don't think it likes you." The creature's crown flared, its blue glow intensifying. The hum in the air grew louder, and the corridor itself seemed to shift, the walls narrowing as if to push Carter's team back. Carter's smile vanished. "Step away from it," he ordered. "We don't know what it's capable of." "No," Aaron said, stepping between Carter and the creature. "If you're planning to take this place by force, you'll have to go through us." Carter's eyes hardened. "Don't make this difficult, Aaron. We're on the same side." "We're," Aaron corrected. "You made it clear where we stand when you left us behind." The tension in the corridor was palpable. Lena could feel her heart pounding, her pulse echoing in her ears. The creature let out another series of tones, and the walls responded again, this time with sharper vibrations. It was as if the entire structure was alive, reacting to the growing conflict. Carter sighed, a mock display of regret. I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. He nodded to his team. Take them. Pierce and the others moved quickly, drawing their weapons. Aaron lunged forward, swinging his makeshift rod with precision honed by desperation. He knocked Pierce's weapon aside, but another team member shoved him back, pinning him against the wall. Lina tried to move, but her injured leg made her slow. One of the team members grabbed her arm, yanking her crutch away. She cried out, struggling against their grip. The creature roared, a deep, resonant sound that shook the corridor. Its crown flared brighter than ever, and the glyphs on the walls responded in kind. A sudden burst of energy rippled through the air, knocking Carter's team to the ground. What the hell? Pierce shouted, scrambling to his feet. The creature stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on Carter. The air around it shimmered, and Lina realized it was generating some kind of field, a barrier that seemed to isolate her and Aaron from the others. Carter's expression darkened. This thing is protecting them, he said, his voice filled with frustration. We need to take it down. No, Lina shouted, her voice filled with desperation. You don't understand. It's not hostile. It's trying to help. Carter ignored her, raising his weapon. But before he could fire, the creature let out another roar, and the energy field expanded, forcing Carter and his team further back. The glyphs on the walls flared brighter, and the corridor began to tremble. This place is collapsing, Pierce shouted, panic in his voice. No, Lina said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and dread. It's defending itself. The tremors grew stronger, and the air filled with a deafening hum. Aaron grabbed Lina's arm, pulling her toward the creature. We need to trust it, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Lina hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Together, they stepped closer to the creature, letting its energy field envelop them. The last thing Lina saw before the light consumed them was Carter's furious expression as the corridor began to crumble around him. When the light faded, Lina and Aaron found themselves in another chamber, this one larger and more elaborate. The creature stood beside them, its crown dimming as the tension in the air eased. Lina turned to Aaron, her voice trembling. Do you think they made it out? Aaron's jaw tightened. I don't know. And right now, I don't care. The creature let out a soft series of tones, drawing their attention. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, its surface glowing faintly. On it rested a device, small, intricate, and pulsing with energy. What is that? Lina asked. Aaron stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. I think it's why we're here. The final stand. The chamber was alive with energy, its glowing walls shifting in patterns that felt almost sentient. Lina and Aaron stood frozen, their eyes locked on the small device resting on the pedestal at the center. It pulsed faintly, each glow sending ripples of light across the chamber. The creature that had guided them here stood silently beside the pedestal, its glowing eyes fixed on Aaron. This must be it, Lina whispered, her voice trembling. Whatever this is, it's what the creature brought us here to find. Aaron stepped closer, his hand hovering over the device. It was small, no larger than a handheld radio, but its surface was covered in intricate alien designs that seemed to shift and pulse like a living thing. He could feel its power radiating in waves, a hum that resonated deep in his chest. Be careful, Lina said, her eyes darting between Aaron and the creature. We don't know what it does. Aaron nodded, his fingers brushing against the device. The moment he made contact, the chamber responded. The walls flared with light, and the hum of energy grew louder. Symbols appeared on the pedestal, scrolling rapidly like an alien script, and the creature let out a low, melodic sound that seemed almost approving. Before Aaron could speak, the light in the chamber dimmed suddenly, replaced by a harsh, flickering red. A familiar voice echoed through the room. Well, looks like you found something interesting. Aaron spun around to see Carter and his team entering the chamber, their faces grim and determined. They were battered and bruised from the collapse of the previous corridor, but their weapons were drawn, and their eyes burned with a mix of desperation and greed. "You've got to be kidding me," Aaron muttered, stepping in front of Lena. Carter smirked, his gaze shifting to the device in Aaron's hand. "Hand it over," he said. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Aaron tightened his grip on the device. "Neither do you. But I know one thing, you're not getting it." Carter's smirk faded, replaced by cold determination. "I'm done playing games, Aaron. That device could be the key to everything. Power, resources, survival. You really think I'm going to let you two walk away with it?" The creature stepped forward, its glowing eyes narrowing as it let out a low growl. Carter's team raised their weapons, tension crackling in the air like a live wire. "Carter, don't do this," Lena said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "This isn't about us anymore. This planet, this technology, it's alive. It's protecting itself. If you push it, you'll doom us all." Carter ignored her, his focus locked on Aaron. "Last chance. Give me the device, or we'll take it by force." Aaron met Carter's gaze, his jaw clenched. "Come and try." The room erupted into chaos. Carter's team opened fire, their weapons blazing. The creature moved with lightning speed, its massive form a blur as it charged toward them. It swatted one of Carter's men aside with a single powerful swipe, sending him crashing into the wall. The others scattered, shouting orders and firing wildly. Aaron grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her behind the pedestal. "Stay low," he shouted over the noise. Lena's heart pounded as she clutched her crutch, her injured leg throbbing with every movement. She watched as the creature fought with brutal efficiency, its movements a seamless blend of strength and precision. But Carter's team was relentless, their advanced weapons chipping away at its defenses. "We can't stay here," Lena shouted. "They'll overwhelm it." Aaron glanced at the device in his hand, his mind racing. The alien script on the pedestal continued to scroll, faster and faster, as if the device was responding to the chaos around it. He didn't know what it was capable of, but he knew it was their only chance. "I have an idea," Aaron said, his voice tight. "But it's risky." "What kind of idea?" Lena asked, her eyes narrowing. Aaron didn't answer. Instead, he placed the device back on the pedestal. The chamber responded immediately, the symbols on the walls flaring to life. The hum of energy grew deafening, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. "What are you doing?" Lena shouted. "Activating it," Aaron said, his fingers flying over the alien symbols. "If this thing is as powerful as I think it is, it might give us the edge we need." The creature let out a piercing roar, drawing Carter's attention. He turned to see Aaron at the pedestal, and his eyes widened in realization. "Stop him," Carter barked. "Don't let him activate it." Two of Carter's men broke away, charging toward Aaron. The creature intercepted one, its massive claws slamming into him with a sickening crunch. The other raised his weapon, but Lena, summoning every ounce of strength she had, swung her crutch with all her might, knocking the weapon from his hands. Aaron pressed the final symbol, and the device emitted a blinding pulse of light. The chamber froze, the hum of energy reaching a deafening crescendo before suddenly falling silent. Then the device activated. A shockwave of energy erupted from the pedestal, rippling through the chamber and beyond. Carter and his team were thrown to the ground, their weapons clattering uselessly beside them. The walls of the chamber shifted, the glowing symbols rearranging into patterns that pulsed with a steady rhythm. The creature let out a low, melodic sound, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. It stepped back, its gaze fixed on Aaron and Lena, as if awaiting their next move. "What did you do?" Carter demanded, his voice trembling with fury. Aaron turned to him, his expression cold. "I gave this place what it wanted, control. And now, it's done with you." The chamber began to shake, the walls closing in as the glowing patterns grew brighter. The creature let out a final, commanding roar, and the ground beneath Carter and his team began to split. "Run!" Aaron shouted, grabbing Lena's arm. They fled toward the corridor, the creature following close behind. Behind them, Carter's shouts faded into the deafening roar of the collapsing chamber. As they reached the end of the corridor, the light consumed them once again, and the world dissolved into blinding white. When the light faded, Lena and Aaron found themselves back on the surface, the twin suns low on the horizon. The creature stood beside them, its gaze calm and steady. "We made it," Lena said, her voice filled with disbelief. Aaron looked at the creature, then at the horizon. "We're not done yet," he said, "but at least now, we have a fighting chance." The creature let out a soft, melodic sound and turned toward the distant mountains. Without hesitation, Aaron and Lena followed. A new beginning. The twin suns cast a soft, amber glow over the alien landscape as Lena, Aaron, and the creature emerged from the glowing portal. The transition had been disorienting, but the calm stillness of the open expanse was a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. Behind them, the platform that had transported them began to dim, its energy spent. The distant hum of the alien structures faded, leaving only the sound of a gentle breeze rustling through the alien flora. Lena leaned heavily on Aaron, her injured leg trembling beneath her. Her face was pale, and beads of sweat clung to her forehead, but her eyes held a spark of determination. Aaron, though equally exhausted, kept a firm grip on her, his gaze scanning the horizon. "We're out," Lena murmured, her voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We made it." "For now," Aaron replied, his tone cautious. He looked down at the small alien device in his hand, its surface now inert. "But we still don't know what this thing is, or what it can do." The creature stood silently beside them, its glowing blue eyes fixed on the distant mountains. Its presence was no longer intimidating, but rather a quiet reassurance. Aaron couldn't help but feel a strange sense of trust toward the alien being, as if it had chosen them for a reason. Lena followed the creature's gaze. "Do you think it's leading us somewhere, or is this it?" Aaron shook his head. "I don't know. But it hasn't steered us wrong so far." The silence was broken by a faint, distant sound, an explosion. Aaron and Lena turned sharply, their eyes widening as they saw smoke rising from the direction of the ravine. The remnants of Carter's team had likely triggered something in their desperation to control the alien technology. Whatever they had unleashed was beyond their understanding, and their ability to contain. Aaron clenched his jaw. They didn't make it. Lena lowered her head, a pang of guilt and sadness washing over her. Despite Carter's betrayal, she couldn't help but feel sorrow for the loss of life. "Do you think it was the device?" Aaron looked at the inert object in his hand. "No, the device was never the weapon. The planet is. It protects itself from anyone who threatens it. Carter and his team made the mistake of thinking they could control it." The creature emitted a soft, melodic tone, drawing their attention. It began to move, its powerful legs carrying it toward the mountains. Aaron glanced at Lena. "It wants us to follow." Lena nodded, her grip tightening on her crutch. "Let's finish this." The journey was arduous. The terrain grew rougher as they approached the mountains, the air becoming thinner and cooler. The creature led them with unwavering purpose, its movements steady and deliberate. Aaron helped Lena as much as he could, but both of them were pushed to their limits. As they climbed higher, the landscape began to change. The barren rock gave way to strange crystalline formations that glowed faintly, casting an ethereal light. The hum of energy returned, growing stronger with each step. It was as if the planet itself was guiding them toward something. After hours of climbing, they reached a plateau. At the center stood a massive structure, a towering spire of alien design that pulsed with a soft, golden light. The creature stopped at the base of the spire, turning to face them. Its glowing eyes seemed to convey a message without words. "This is it," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is what it wanted us to find." Aaron approached the spire cautiously, the device in his hand beginning to glow faintly. As he stepped closer, symbols appeared on the spire's surface, scrolling rapidly. The device vibrated in his hand, as if urging him to act. "Do it," Lena said. "Whatever this is, it's why we're here." Aaron hesitated for only a moment before pressing the device against the spire. The reaction was immediate. The spire flared with light, sending ripples of energy through the air. The ground beneath them trembled, and the crystalline formations around them began to resonate with a harmonious hum. The creature let out a long, melodic tone, its crown of bone-like protrusions glowing brightly. The light from the spire enveloped it, and for a moment, it seemed to dissolve into the energy itself, becoming one with the planet. Lena shielded her eyes from the brightness. "What's happening?" Aaron's voice was filled with awe. "I think it's completing something, maybe restoring balance." The light began to fade, and the trembling stopped. The spire remained, its golden glow now steady and calm. The creature reappeared, its form slightly altered. Its once blue eyes now glowed golden, and its presence radiated an undeniable sense of peace. The hum of the spire shifted, and a voice, soft and resonant, filled the air around them. It wasn't a language they understood, but the meaning was clear. Gratitude, connection, hope. "It's thanking us," Lena said, tears streaming down her face. Aaron nodded, his own eyes misty. "And I think it's offering us a way home." The creature stepped aside, revealing a new portal at the base of the spire. Its light was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the harshness of the previous portals. The creature let out a final melodic tone, nodding toward them. Aaron turned to Lena. "Are you ready?" Lena smiled through her tears. "Ready as I'll ever be." Together, they stepped through the portal. The light enveloped them, and for a moment, there was nothing but warmth and a sense of belonging. When they emerged, they were back on Earth. The air was crisp and familiar, the sky a brilliant blue. They stood in the middle of a sprawling field, their surroundings untouched by human development. The device in Aaron's hand was now silent, its purpose fulfilled. He looked at Lena, a small smile playing on his lips. "We made it." Lena laughed, a sound filled with relief and joy. "We did." As they looked at the horizon, they knew their journey had changed them forever. The alien planet, the creature, the device, it had all been part of something greater. And though they didn't fully understand it, they carried its message with them. Hope, connection, survival, and maybe, just maybe, humanity's place in the universe would never be the same.